some people may hear that and say, oh, well, she knew someone. Yeah, I did. And you know what? You got to prove yourself once you're there.
You and I actually worked together years ago, many, many years ago on the Rachael Ray show.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about that because that was a very interesting show to work on. And I know you worked on it for the entire run, I think.
Yeah. I missed the very first half of the first season, but since then I was there the whole time.
So that's incredible. I mean, that never happens. You started out, you were just an intern in school. Is that what happened?
I was, yeah. So I started in January of 2007. It was my last semester of college. I was at the Fashion Institute of Technology for fashion merchandising. So totally unrelated to TV. But, through my years there, I kind of realized I don't think this is really for me. It just wasn't quite right. My whole family is sort of a TV family. My dad was on the running local stations kind of side of things. My brother is a producer in LA. My cousin was a writer. My grandfather was an animator for Warner Brothers and then ran local TV stations. So it's very much in the blood. And I started interning in TV. I started at All My Children, which was a soap that sadly is no longer around. But I interned in their wardrobe department because I thought maybe doing, the costuming where I kind of could figure out this is, you can tell a lot about a character by the way they dress. And I loved the sociology of that. So I thought that was maybe where I was going to go. And it turned out that was still more of a design job than I was prepared to do or even wanted to do. But I loved putting on a show. I loved the environment. I loved feeling like I was backstage I grew up doing ballet. And it felt like I was backstage at the ballet and we're all coming together to put on a show for everyone. And it was awesome. And so then I interned at Entertainment Tonight and loved it. And then from there interned at Rachael Ray and just never left.
How did you actually get the internship? Was it an application?
My internship at All My Children came through someone, honestly, that my dad had known who knew someone who knew someone. At Entertainment Tonight, my cousin had a friend who, worked there who recommended me. And, it was that kind of thing. And then through that, I got to Rachael Ray because there was a lot of crossover of people that worked at Entertainment Tonight and worked at Rachael Ray. Some people may hear that and say, oh, well, she knew someone. Yeah, I did. And you know what? That's the best way to do it. If you have the privilege of knowing someone who can get your foot in the door, take it. If you don't take that advantage, then someone else is going to. And I think as long as you get in, it doesn't really matter how. You got to prove yourself once you're there.
If you're not pulling your weight, there's 10 people standing at the door ready to come in anytime.
Yeah, and at that point, unless you know someone who is real important, it doesn't matter that you knew someone to get your resume off the stack. No one cares.
Absolutely. So what did you do at Rachael Ray as an intern?
So I actually was thinking about this. I think I was on one of your shoots, but as an intern at Rachael, we did everything from sorting the fan mail that came into different piles based on what they were about. We, people brought their dogs to work at that show and we would take their dogs for walks. We would do a lot of runs to pick up props, a little bit of everything. The shoot that I think I went on with you, we were making over a bedroom.
Yes.
Yeah, that was with Yvette Rios, a home decor expert. I spent an entire day out shopping with her where I learned all about what she looks for a home renovation and, learned about, well, this fabric is beautiful in real life, but won't actually work on TV or, all of those types of things. And then I would go on the shoot and help out with whatever was needed on the shoot. I also really, like I said, because I wasn't coming from school for television, I really felt like I needed to learn everything in my internships. So I pretty quickly thought that I would want to be on a producing team. So I went to one of the segment coordinators, which is the lowest person on the producing teams. And I went to one of them and I was like, I think I want to do what you do, but I don't really know what that is. So if there's ever an opportunity for me to shadow you or help you out with anything, please let me know. And like the next day, she came into the intern office and was like, hey, Rebecca, you want to learn something? And I said yes. And I basically worked with that team for the rest of my internship. Every day that I was there, they would request me. And I got to do everything from like pre-interviewing guests who would write into the website of the show, and I'd call them and see what their story was. And if they had a good personality and energy, I would help them research things for segments. Like there was a big segment while I was there that was about trying to do an expensive version of a room and an inexpensive version of a room and have them look the same. So I spent a day just researching to find chandeliers that were expensive and that were inexpensive that looked the same. And you know, I would help them with fashion segments because I did go to FIT. I got called on a lot to help with fashion segments. So they'd be doing a makeover and they'd be like, okay, Rebecca, we really need a pair of red sandals. And they would send me out and I would just run around town shopping and finding the red sandals that would look good with an outfit, or, you know, helping on a fitting. And, you know, they would say, okay, we need this in a different size. And I would run out and get it. So a little bit of everything, but really it was a great experience because I got to see everything.
Yeah. I think people who are watching who don't know how talk shows are made would probably be a little surprised to know like all the details and all the things that go into a shoot like that. We had something like 2 or 3 or 4 hours to redo a whole bedroom.
Yeah, it's nuts.
I just kept thinking when it was over, like it looked spectacular.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way they put things up was like they kind of like basically Scotch tape things to the wall.
Yeah. And like a lot of it is like, we've got to get it done really fast. And then maybe they'll like send someone back in to, you know, do things the proper way.
Right.
If there wasn't time. But like, you know, I, as an intern, like painted a table. You know, it's not like they had professionals doing everything. Like,
right.
It's very much, especially in a renovation kind of project, it's very all hands on deck, you know?
All hands on deck, yeah. Yeah. I remember this poor woman had a bathroom that was off the bedroom, and we had to put everything into that bathroom in order to change the whole bedroom.
Yeah.
And, you know, she had some cleanup to do when we left.
Yeah.
But the bedroom looked really, really
It looked
awesome.
great. Yeah.
It's not something she could have done herself. So
right.
It was good for her. That was great for the show. So that was your internship. And then how long from then until you got a promotion? How did the promotion come to
So I interned starting in January and the season ended in May. And so with TV shows, you know, you don't necessarily keep the same staff year after year after year. And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And, you know, sometimes people are let go. Sometimes people decide to move on their own. So me getting a job basically depended on jobs opening up. There's no guarantee that there were going to be jobs. So as the season started to wind down, I made it very known that I wanted to stay if there was a position. I did get to have an interview with our executive producer, and the season ended and they still didn't know if they had spots. So I graduated and said, okay, I don't have a job, and everyone else I went to school with is getting hired and starting jobs, and it's June and I'm like, I hope I get a job. But I also knew that TV jobs are very like, they open and then they start right away. It's not like something, there's not a lot of planning involved, I guess. So I was actually in Los Angeles. I went to visit my brother and extended my visit because I hadn't heard anything. And I was like, well, I have nothing to run back to New York for. And then the producer that I had been working with at Rachael called me and was like, hey, there's an opening on my team. I want to interview for it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm out of town. I'll come back right now. And she was like, it's fine. Finish your vacation. Like, when you come back to New York, we'll meet. And we did, and it went really well. And I think I got a call either later that day or the next day from the executive in charge at the show, and they made me an offer. And that was probably mid-June and I started in July.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a pretty stressful job working on a talk
Yeah.
show. Yeah. I mean, like the hours are really, really
The hours
super.
are nuts.
Yeah. What was your day like?
It really varied. It really varied. And you would have times that you were slammed, and then you would have times that it wasn't so crazy. And I would say in most days I worked from like either 8 or 9 in the morning, depending on whether we were taping that day or not. And then usually wrapped around 7-ish. But there were definitely a lot of times when I was working until 10 o'clock at night. And then there were some times when you'd finish it, it'd be like 5 o'clock and you were like, okay, I think I'm taking a half day today. I think I'm done. But I didn't work a lot of weekends at Rachel, but at another show that I worked on at Tamron Hall, I did work a lot of weekends. So it really varies show to show, but the hours can be crazy. They absolutely can be crazy. And it's a lot of work. And it is so much goes into every single segment. And I would say that the biggest thing that guests who came on the show would say to us, wow, there's so many people that work here. I had no idea this was such a big operation.
There's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And then with Rachel, there's the whole cooking aspect, which is it's so detailed, the shopping, the cooking, the preparation. Yeah. You had some involvement as you went on in the years?
Yeah, so I produced a lot of culinary talent. So when we would have guest chefs on the show, so like the cake boss, Buddy Valastro, I produced him for like 12 years, I think. I was producing his segments every time he was on the show, and he was on a ton. Richard Blaze was another one of mine, Jacques Pepin, Gail Simmons, Sunny Anderson. I produced a segment for her season 6, and every segment she did through the end of season 17.
Tell me what it entails to actually produce a cooking segment.
For someone like Jacques Pepin, who is probably going to come on and do a pretty straightforward dish, we would say, okay, you're the legend, Jacques Pepin. What do you want to make? And he would tell us what he wanted to make. And we would, talk to the culinary team. Usually he'd give us like a couple of options. I would run those options by the culinary team, who would help me decide this one's going to be the best for TV. This is going to appeal to our viewers the most. They like chicken, not fish, that kind of thing. And this segment will take the right amount of time. This recipe will take the right amount of time. You'll be able to really learn this technique or that technique, that kind of thing. Then there were segments like with Richard Blaze, who is so imaginative and inventive that you really can throw anything at him and he's going to knock it out of the park. So we loved to give him challenges. So like I had this idea, we called it food anagrams. And I was like, I want to give him, I want to say it was like 7 ingredients. It wasn't a lot. And he didn't know the ingredients beforehand, but we had him on the side of our set. So the whole show is still going on, and he was on set the entire hour of the show with the challenge to make as many different dishes as he possibly could out of those 7 ingredients within 1 hour. And then every time he finished a dish, he rang a bell. And Rachel would be over here, interviewing someone and be like, oh, what you got over there, Richard? And he would be like, I just made a quesadilla, or whatever it was. So in a segment like that, I had the idea for the concept of it, but then I would talk to the culinary team and be like, is this actually doable, or am I being crazy? And we would work together with the culinary team to figure out, okay, these are the ingredients we should have. This one will be a real challenge, but then we have this ingredient that he'll be able to use 100 different ways. So balancing it to make sure it was actually fun and doable, but also a legitimate challenge for him. So we ended up doing a million riffs on that. We did one that was, he started with a table full of Thanksgiving leftovers. So he had like a quarter of a turkey and a couple spoonfuls of sweet potatoes and, everything to make Thanksgiving leftovers with. And we did it for 4th of July, and we did a ton of them. So that was really fun. But we would also do things with him, or like with Sunny Anderson. She's the most fun person in the world. So we took advantage of her being game for anything. And we found someone who was a super fan of hers, and we had Sunny go into her house in the middle of the night. We worked with this woman's husband, and he let us in the house in the middle of the night while the woman was still sleeping so that when she came downstairs in the morning, Sunny had cooked her breakfast. So on a segment like that, I'm working with this guest to figure out the best way to surprise them and the logistics of the surprise and make sure that they're going to have a great reaction and all of that. And I'm also working with our culinary team to make sure, okay, Sunny's going to need this, this, and this ingredients. And is this a good recipe for her to do? And she's going to need this kind of equipment. And this is how long the recipe is going to take and all of that. So it really varied. And you know, the culinary team is the most valuable asset at Rachael Ray. They were amazing. But it was really fun. I found that I loved working with chefs. I love their personalities. I love the sort of creativity and artistry that goes into it. And it was really fun to produce that kind of content. We did a whole episode that was about the Guinness Book of World Records and trying to break records on the show. And for anyone who doesn't know, Guinness is very specific and their rules are airtight. And they send someone to adjudicate and it's very serious. So we were having Buddy the cake boss come and he was going to frost the most cupcakes in a minute. And the cupcakes needed to be a very specific diameter. And I had told his team over and over again, remember these cupcakes need to be this size. You guys are bringing the cupcakes. They need to be this size. And they were going to bring like 100 cupcakes or something, like something crazy. So we, had enough. And they got there and those cupcakes were not the right size.
Oh my gosh.
And we didn't have time to make cupcakes. And so I had every person that was not working on the show we were taping that morning, I had about half the staff calling bakeries in the area. I had half the staff running around town with rulers and measuring. I said, buy a cupcake, buy a muffin. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it comes frosted. We will take the frosting off, but you have to measure it and make sure it's this size. And meanwhile, they're all doing that. I'm dealing with the Guinness World Records people trying to come up with what other records could he break? Like, can we break a record for how many eggs he can crack in a minute? I can go buy eggs. That's no problem. Can we break a record for how many sprinkles he can fit on the top of a, cupcake? Like what can we do? And ultimately we had a very strange array of muffins and cupcakes and they were all different colors and everything, but they were the right size. We got enough. We broke the record. We did it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like a crazy all hands on deck and you've just got to find a solution and you don't have time to dilly-dally. You just got to find an answer.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thinking on your feet. That is definitely a producer's trait. Yeah.
Yeah. We also shot with Sunny. I think it was a Thanksgiving segment where she was going to cook a turkey on her grill in her backyard for us. And we were shooting it with her. And like the weekend that we were supposed to shoot with her was Hurricane Sandy. And that hit New York pretty hard. And we couldn't find turkeys. And the culinary team that was shopping for the segment was like trying to get all the ingredients and they went to like tons of stores to find a turkey. They finally found one. And when they went to cook it at Sunny's house, it was rancid. And it looked fine, but it apparently did not smell fine. And if you ever hear Sunny Anderson refer to the stank turkey, that's from that. But no one would ever know watching the show. It just didn't get eaten and it smelled really bad. But God bless Sunny Anderson and our culinary team. They found the turkey.
Oh my. So what other jobs did you have? You started as an intern, then you moved.
Yeah. So I was an intern and I went straight onto a producing team. So I went from being an intern to being a segment coordinator. And the producing teams are teams of 3. So you've got a producer, producer, an associate producer, and a segment coordinator. So I worked my way through each of those. And by the end of the show, I was a senior coordinating producer, which I still was a producer on a 3-person producing team, but I took on bigger segments or more legally sensitive segments or just more segments.
What was the most interesting or challenging show that you can think of that you worked on?
It is the show that I am most proud of in my career. We did a special season 10. Our Thanksgiving episode was a special hour-long episode that we shot on location in Detroit, Michigan. And my associate producer at the time actually found the story, and she pitched it to me. And it was a story about this youth boxing gym, a nonprofit program, where the rule of the gym was books before boxing. So basically, this coach Kali had started this program. He grew up in Detroit. He was in and out of jail. He basically was like 20 and was like, I'm either going to end up dead or in jail if I don't change my life. And I need to change the lives of kids around me. He couldn't read. So he started like learning how to read and everything, and was like, this is what I need to do. So he opened a boxing gym, but the rule is books before boxing. So the kids came to the gym, they would get tutoring and homework help and all these academic programs, and then they would get into the boxing ring. And he, through boxing, they learn discipline, and they learn, athleticism, and it's and focus, and all of these things that really helped them. And this program had the huge waiting list. They had I don't know if it was 99% or 100% graduation rates, that were head and shoulders above the Detroit baseline of graduation rates. This program was truly changing lives for kids, but scraping along. And so we wanted to tell their story and decided to do a full special. And then we went there, and we realized they also provided meals for kids, and they just had a snack room. It was not anything special, and they would have food was donated. And for some of these kids, that was the only meal they were getting that day. And it might just be chips. We decided to renovate their snack room and turn it into a full gourmet stocked kitchen. We set it up for a year with a local school in the area that was going to come teach the kids cooking lessons. And we ended up throwing a huge Thanksgiving dinner, and we got donations for the gym and for the kids. And it was just the most amazing thing I've ever been a part of. And from our show, they got tons of donations and got a huge platform, and they've been able to expand so much. And it was just incredible. It was unlike anything I had ever done before. So it was so hard and so much work, but it changed my life. It was so eye-opening and just amazing to tell that kind of story.
Yeah. You forget that sometimes these entertaining shows actually do some real good.
It's so funny because I worked on a lot of makeovers. I did a lot of fashion segments, and a lot of it was makeovers. And on the surface, that seems so silly and just, fun and whatever. But I had a lot of women tell me that they had never felt good about themselves before. Mm-hmm. And this makeover changed that. And I had women in tears telling me this was the first time they ever felt beautiful. That changes a person. And it is amazing to know that something, as trivial as a new haircut and, makeup and a new outfit can do that, but it really can change a person's outlook. And we did that on a day-to-day basis. And that I think is one of the things that was so special about the Rachael Ray show, is that it really was about making people's lives better. And that was sort of the goal with every single segment, was about, making life easier or better, or saving people time, or saving them money and saving them energy. And that's a huge deal, even if it's just helping someone get dinner on the table. It meant something to people. So it was really special to be there and to do that. And I mean, the show changed my life in every way.
It was half your lifetime.
I started at the show when I was 21 as an intern, and the final episode of all time aired on my 38th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's incredible that the show lasted that long,
Yeah.
because that's really unusual. And that you'd be there that whole time is unheard of. What have you been doing since then?
So I was a supervising producer at the Tamron Hall show for a year last year. Unfortunately, they had some budget constraints that led to a layoff this year, but had a great experience. Loved getting to lead the teams and really mentor and train younger producers. Was awesome. And then I have a show that I created for PBS that we did 3 seasons of during my hiatus periods, because at Rachael Ray we had summers off. So I did it during those periods. And we are actually about to shoot season 4.
And what's the name?
That show is called Broadway Sandwich, and it is about the time sandwiched between matinee and evening performances. And it's sort of a talk show on the go format. So we meet a Broadway star right as they've finished their matinee performance, and then whatever they're doing in between shows, we do it with them. So there's always a sit down, meal where we really dig in and have like a good interview. And then we've done everything from physical therapy with the stars. We have done voice lessons. We went rock climbing with the girl who was starring in Chicago. We got sort of a behind the scenes theater tour. We get to see their dressing rooms and that kind of thing. And started as just a little passion project because this nerd was a theater kid and wanted to be on Broadway stages. So
that sounds
really
fun. What would be your ideal job? Or do you think you want to stay in TV or?
It's so tricky. And I'm in the position right now where I'm looking for that next move. And, I think if staying in TV was an option, I think I would do that 100%. Like, I would love to work on a late night show. I think that would be so much fun. Like, I love working in TV. I love the creativity. I love the feeling of everyone working their butts off to put something out there that millions of people are going to see. Like, there's nothing more exciting than that. But the TV industry is changing, and it is not in a good place right now, in all honesty. And, every day you're hearing about layoffs and budget cuts, and especially daytime TV. It's not looking like it's on an upward path right now. So I am trying to figure out kind of what the next step is and what kind of pivot. And, I think that especially coming from daytime and having worked on so many different types of segments, I really could do anything. I think, producers have so many skills, and it's now just the challenge is to get people who are not producers to see that. I'm thinking really advertising and marketing is a good space for me to try to get into, because I did a lot of branded integration content at Rachael, which is basically where a company comes to the show and says, we want to get this product onto the show. So, we're not just going to say, okay, cool, let's do a segment saying, hey, look at this phone. It's the greatest thing ever. And we love this phone, and you should want this phone too, because it's not a commercial. But we're going to figure out how to integrate this phone into the show in a way that is interesting and doesn't feel like an ad, but shows off why it's great. And I was good at that. So I would love to do more of that type of work, maybe for an ad agency, that type of thing. But now it's just, it's really hard to make that pivot unless the people doing the hiring are open to it. So
yeah. Unless they really understand, like they kind of have to understand the TV industry to know how that relates to what they do, and how and see why you're actually really, really eligible and very qualified to do these other things.
Exactly. And because truly, TV producers can do anything. We can do anything. We become experts like that, and we help. I mean, I've produced medical segments. I am no doctor, but I learned everything there was to learn about it to be able to share that information with viewers, and then the next day I'm producing a finance segment and learning everything about that. And the next day I'm producing a beauty segment and learning everything about that. Like, we do it all. And we are ultimately, at the end of the day, we're experts in getting things done and working with every department, from travel to props to, the director, to the budget side of things, to, the field team, to the editors. The producer is the person who comes up with the idea and then makes it happen. So that really can apply to anything. And then we are the people who, when something goes wrong, we have to fix it immediately. So
Yep.
it's really great skills to have. It's now just about trying to share with people, hey, I have these skills. You may not know it, but I've got them. So.
Right. And also figuring out what are these other jobs and these other industries that you would be interested in working in.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. It's a process. What are you doing? Like, how are you going about all this?
I'm networking as much as I can. I'm trying to reconnect with, people that I've worked with in the past and hear what they're up to. I am applying to jobs on LinkedIn. It's a really crazy job market right now. And you're seeing jobs go up on LinkedIn, and you're seeing that it was posted, 12 hours ago and already has over 100 applicants. And so it's about trying to find any way to separate yourself. And so I'll apply for a job, and then I'll, search that company and find anyone that I know who works there, or who I know who knows someone who works there. And I'm reaching out and seeing if they can get my resume off the pile. And, and then I've also just spent time doing informational interviews with people. I spoke to a woman who is a creative director at NBC who, basically produces these integrated segments like I was doing. But, if on Top Chef, they go to a commercial, and the first commercial in the break is a former Top Chef using Ziploc bags. She produces that. And that's basically branded integrations like what I did. So I was like, oh my God, this is a great thing for me to look for now that because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm sure that there are jobs that exist that I'd be great for that I might just not know about. So I'm trying to learn those kinds of things now.
Sure. Informational interview. And you basically, you called the person and said, I'm not looking, I know you don't have a job right now, but can you tell me about what you do?
Yeah. So a friend of mine actually works at NBC, and I was talking to her about it, and she was like, God, it seems like you really need to talk to my friend Sharon. And she seems like she does a job that would be great for you. And so she put me in touch, and I'm so grateful that people like this woman were willing to take half an hour out of their day to talk to me when it wasn't anything that was going to benefit her. She doesn't have a job opening she needs to fill, but she was willing to chat with me. And that was so helpful, because even honestly, just knowing that, hey, there are jobs out there that I might love that aren't what I've already done. It's really useful to know. And so I'm so grateful to people like that. And I'm kind of just reminding myself, like, I didn't start working at Rachael Ray because I loved daytime TV. I started working at Rachael Ray because it was an internship that was available to me. And I got there and I loved it. It was never a dream of mine to work in daytime TV, but it became a dream. Like it was fully a dream job. I loved it. So I just kind of keep reminding myself that, like, I may not know what the next dream job is. Like, that could happen again. I could fall into a job and realize, oh my God, this is where I should have been all along.
Yeah. I think sometimes people don't realize they also have to kind of take a step down sometimes. I know that happened to a friend of mine. She was a producer. She ended up going to the Oprah show actually as an associate producer, and then worked her way up to be like one of the top positions. It was the same industry, but the point being, when she first was offered it, she was like, I don't want to, why would I want to take a step down? And she had to, because it was a different kind of a job. It was a different location. That's what they required. And it ended up paying off.
Yeah. I mean, that's really hard to kind of think about, like, taking a step back when you've worked so hard to get where you are. But at the end of the day, if that's what needs to happen, especially if I'm trying to pivot careers, like, it might need to happen, but we'll see.
I think what has made you successful so far is your willingness to, first of all, to advocate for yourself. Like, when you went to the person, you said, hey, I really want to learn this. Can you help me? And then, like, she said, yeah, sure. Why not? And I've done that before, where I've actually had people come and talk to me about the job that I was working at. And I enjoy it. I enjoyed telling them what I'm doing and helping in some way, even if they didn't get the job. Or a job like that. But how do you stay motivated, I guess, would be my question, when it gets tough?
really hard.
How do you?
I will say it's really hard. And, going on LinkedIn, and I'm saying LinkedIn because it is the main site that I'm using for all of this. But if you just look at your LinkedIn feed, it is post after post after post about, I've been unemployed for this many months. I've been unemployed for this many months. I have had this many interviews. I've been ghosted by this recruiter. I've been ghosted by all these recruiters. The system is broken and there's so many fake job postings, and you can sit on there and you can read them and just lose your mind with, it's hopeless. And what am I doing differently than these other people who have been unemployed for months and months, and it is really hard to stay motivated in that. But I am doing the best that I can to just keep applying to different jobs, and I'm trying to stay motivated by reaching out to people and networking, because people are really, really nice. and it is nice when you reach out to someone and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're out of work. You're the best. And everyone should want to hire you. And it is nice to hear. And yes, there are times that I'm like, yeah, well, I wish that everyone else knew that, but I'm taking breaks. Like, there are days that I'm just like, I can't write another cover letter. I just can't do it. And that's okay. That's, it's okay. I guess I'm staying motivated just because it's all I can do.
I'm very confident that you will find, if not something in TV, in something else that you really, really enjoy and can learn and bring the skills that you have to and grow. And like you said before, I think that's so well put. You don't know what you don't know. So you have to just keep reaching out to people and exploring other options. And I'm sure it's going to work out for you. I'm not concerned.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, hopefully something great will come along. And, there have been a few things that I maybe didn't get the job, but I got excited about the hope of the job. And even though it is upsetting to not get a job, it was nice to know, oh my God, there's something I could be excited about again. Okay, that's great. It's not over, and like, this job came up, something else will too.
Well, I thank you so much for talking with me, and maybe you'll come back when you get your next job. Maybe it'll be a different industry, or maybe the same one, and you can talk about what actually worked and how much you love it. That would be great.
Perfect.